If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have all 5 board members present, 4 here, and Ms. Young is going to join us via the telephone. I thank everyone for getting together on such quick notice. When Governor Ducey announced the change in the mask mandate in the schools, the district started receiving a lot of calls. There was some confusion, and I thought it would be important for us to meet immediately to give the superintendent direction on that. So with that said, we're just going to have some discussion about our current mask policy, what the board would like to do, if they would like to keep the policy the same, if we want to change it, and so forth. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have, yes, we added the call to the audience. Sorry, Susan Collins, sorry. If you would like to address the board, and then we'll begin our discussion.
Thank you. Good evening, KUSD School Board. I'm here tonight representing myself as an employee and a parent within the Community Unified School District, and as an advocate for quality public education in every zip code. I've watched the school board meeting during the current global pandemic, every meeting, and most of those prior to the pandemic. I would like to say that I've seen a spirit of openness and compromise. I would also like to say that all viewpoints have been heard and valued. I would like to say that calm discussion of differing views has taken place. Unfortunately, I cannot say any of those statements with a clear conscience. President Lucero, in your position as president of the board, you set the tone for all discussions. This is especially true when opinions are from differing viewpoints. What I have witnessed in this boardroom and in the virtual setting is a simple tolerance for opposing views. I have not witnessed open discussion that focuses on shared values with an intent to conclude on a workable compromise. Instead, I have witnessed a lack of openness to opinions that differ from yours and a refusal to support your motions with data. Once again, this board is tasked with making a binding decision on a controversial topic. I'm certain that the previous pattern of discussion and steamroller decision-making will prevail. This is greatly concerning to me. I believe that every person on this board and every person in KUSD wants what is best for students, teachers, and parents. Just because there are differing views on what that looks like does not mean that workable solutions honoring all opinions cannot be reached. It does mean that those conversations will not be short and they will not be easy. President Lucero, you have the responsibility of removing your emotions from the discussion and mediating a fair and equitable debate that focuses on shared values. Unfortunately, what I have seen is emotionally charged reactions that build more division rather than bringing people together. My challenge to the board, and President Lucero specifically, is to find common ground to work together for what is in the best interest of all stakeholders in this district, both the majority and the dissenting opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin the discussion. Ms. Dorner, do you want to just start us off a little bit? Just if I know there was an email survey and so forth, just to give the board information that you have.
Yeah, there was a flurry of activity in 24 hours, and I will publicly say, as I have said before, that I had a lack of appreciation for information just being distributed on a television channel with no information being sent and no time for us to process the information. With all due respect to Governor Ducey's position, when that hit the media and we didn't know it was happening, I learned through the dings on my phone and the emails, all of a sudden last evening. And then immediately some sister districts put out some information without, talking to the board. So having said all of that, this last 24 hours has been very busy. And as Susan referenced, there are a lot of opinions on both sides. So I just would like to share a summary of that. I did put out a survey today to the staff. I started this morning, and the answers, the submissions started coming in very rapidly. I was told at some point during the day that there was a possibility people were submitting multiple times because we didn't have the mechanism turned off. You can have surveys where they can submit more than once, or you can have a survey where it can only happen once on a device. So I was carefully watching the data to make sure it wasn't skewed. I can tell you that it started at a 7 out of 10 rate and it ended at a 7 out of 10 rate. And when you're looking at statistics, that does lean toward a valid result when you don't see it tip or skew all of a sudden. So I'm fairly confident that 7 out of 10 of the respondents were in favor of a modified mask schedule. 3 out of 10 wanted to leave it just as it is. Did not have opinions on that survey, but I did have quite a few follow-up emails from folks who are wanting to keep the mask mandate consistent. So I want to share some of those thoughts. Some of the supporting ideas behind continuing the mask mandate exactly as it is in the Return to Learn guide now include that consistency through the end of the year that a lot of people are looking for, that the students are used to it. There are classes, such as some of our special area classes where, and I guess this is a good example, where kids are singing and the aerosol out of the mouths of our young ones can spread. That was one opinion, that while there are a lot of people vaccinated, we don't really know yet and have a span of determination on how well the vaccination is working. So those were some of the emails I received in support of continuing. I also received some emails from a few parents and a number of staff members that say, with the number of vaccinations that are in our area, in our district, the fact that all of our employees had the opportunity to become fully vaccinated, because we are sitting at no student cases and no, I think maybe one pending case as a student and one pending case as a staff member, that everything we've done, and especially now that we're fully live, has worked, and that we would like to see a little more time and space for an opportunity to take the mask off. So again, when you look at the survey, we definitely are leaning toward folks wanting the option of personal choice, but the minority who are speaking in favor of the mask mandate continuing do make some good points as well. I did have a meeting with the principals at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I asked them how their day had gone. I have to admit to you, I thought it was going to be a horrible morning. I was prepared for chaos, and that did not occur. So I want to give, accolades to our parents and our students and our staff members for having an excellent day, because there was a little bit of a social media blitz last night. The masks are over, When the governor says, I'm rescinding the mask mandate for schools, what is heard by the public is no more masks. And so that's why I expected a little bit of chaos this morning. 10 out of 10 principals reported that they had an excellent day, that there were kids that were coming without, but they handed them to them and they wore them. There was compliance, it was calm. I think we have a grace period because I know the public is waiting for a decision to be made. I don't know what it looks like after the decision is made, but it was a good day. So that's a general picture of where we are right now.
Okay, thanks, Doc. Any questions for Dr. Dorner? Yes,
Couple
Mr. Jacks.
questions. The 10 principals, was it 10 for 10 that were in favor of a optional mask requirement,
Yeah.
or where did that stand?
Yeah, there are 11 in the meeting, but one doesn't have kids on the campus right now, and all but one were in favor of the optional. I asked what their staff's general feeling and the culture of that feeling on campus was, to see if it matched the survey results, and they said it was very similar. There are people who would really like to continue the mask mandate, and there are others that would like the option. So
Has Mojave Health said anything since the statement from Governor Ducey came out?
Mojave County Health Department has said nothing. We have very minimal interaction with them unless we seek them out, and even then it's sometimes hard to get a hold of them. We did receive a letter from the Arizona Department of Education this afternoon. It's just very simple. It reminds us that universal and correct use of masks is a very top mitigation strategy for safe in-person learning. And says the state no longer mandates mask wearing in the K-12 settings, but they encourage us to continue recommending and using them, you know. And in my opinion, in my interpretation, even in a modified manner, if we do that, if we do move forward with any kind of modification, that masks should no longer be obsolete. I don't think it's a matter of take the masks off and have a bonfire or hang them up. I think there's still a time and a place for them occasionally, or whenever there's a group setting. This is what I'm getting from the ADE.
The last question I have is, was there any discussions as to why our schools felt like they could be successful with an optional mask requirement?
Yeah, and again, this is all in a day without, people don't have a hard
Right.
data with them. These are
Right.
opinions based on observations, but a lot of people are pointing to the fact that we have done an excellent job, and whatever your interpretation of that is based on who reports their positivity and their illness, in having no positive cases on our campuses. Since we've been live, there have literally been minimal to no cases. And so they feel like we're getting it right. There's a debate. Is that because of the mask? Do we have no cases? Are we sitting in a really good position? Are we feeling confident because of the masks? And if the masks come off, will that change? Or are we going to still be in a good place because we have all of our other mitigation strategies in place? And I think the consensus was among the group I talked to today that they feel comfortable that many people would continue to wear them and that our other strategies are working as well. So
Thank you.
it's just a summary of the conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Dorner. Would any board members like to speak or have comments?
I love how you're all looking at me.
I'm looking around, but I just looked over there
Oh, I
first.
saw it first. Charlie, do you want to, because you're the one that called the meeting, do you want to start this out?
Well, yeah, my main purpose for bringing the meeting, like I said in the beginning, is that there was a lot of confusion yesterday when Ducey gave the update on his mask policy of rescinding the mask mandate in the schools. So I thought it was important for us to meet. I know schools around the community were already making decisions, and we were going to have a lot of questions. So that is the intent of the meeting, to find out if we want to keep the policy as is or we would like to change it.
What are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts?
Oh,
You-
I have thoughts. I'm just curious about what yours are.
Okay, well, sure. Since you asked, Jen, I think that we've done an excellent, and I'll say excellent job with all the challenges that we've had. There have been some scary decisions that we've made. We've had some very in-depth board discussions about what is best for KUSD. Obviously, we have our own opinions, but I think we've asked a lot of our students, our staff, our family, our parents, and so forth. And I think that we are at a point now where, like Dr. Dorner said, we aren't going to get rid of masks. Masks may be around a long time. We don't know what the future holds, but I think we're at a point where we can make them optional and make it a family decision. If students, staff want to wear masks, then they can wear masks. If they feel they do not want to wear a mask, then they don't have to. I think that's where we're at right now at this point in time.
I'll go ahead.
Sure, Beth.
So I did some research today, also lost my day to this. I would like to remind the public, we volunteer. We also have to work full-time jobs or whatever, you know. I called KRMC and asked, I talked to public relations there. Currently, they have 6 COVID patients. We have 1 adult and 1 student pending,
One pending, yeah.
1 pending. On the flip side, you know, so that's some really good news. But on the flip side, 28.5% of Mojave County residents are vaccinated. That's really, really low when we need 70% for your herd immunity. Now, don't know how many people actually already got COVID and have immunity, but we don't know how long the immunity lasts if they did go through the COVID itself. So, I mean, these are just unknowns. And we've made a lot of decisions with a lot of unknowns, and we were lucky. CDC, I gave you guys each a copy of page 3 of the operational strategy for K-12 schools. I don't know if people can hear me. Okay. The operational strategy for K-12 schools through phase prevention, which I know you see this stuff all the time. This is a part of what was helped shape our return to learn.
Mhm.
But on page 3, it reiterates, regardless of the level of community transmission, it is critical, and this is bold, it is critical that schools use and layer prevention strategies. 5 key prevention strategies are essential to safe delivery of in-person instruction and help to prevent COVID-19 transmission in schools. Number 1, universal and correct use of masks. Number 2 is physical distancing. 3, hand washing, respiratory etiquette. 4, cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities. 5, contact tracing. And then it says again, schools providing in-person instruction should prioritize 2 prevention strategies. 1, universal and correct use of masks should be required. Number 2, physical distancing should be maximized to the greatest extent possible. That's the CDC. Johns Hopkins is very similar. We're not the scientists, they are. Nobody knows exactly what all's going on, except that this is respiratory and it comes out through the nose and mouth. It comes in through the nose and mouth. So that's a really strong thing here. CDC still guides us to make sure we're requiring everybody's wearing masks. We don't yet have the full ventilation systems we need, correct?
Devin's not here, but I think it's either close, done, or in the middle.
Okay.
But yeah, we're right around.
Right, we're still not.
Yeah.
And Mike, I am concerned. This is only a concern. I have no idea if there's any basis to it. But we're gonna get money from the CARES Act for ventilation systems and stuff. If we're not following CDC guidelines, are they gonna be upset about that? We have so many things that are tied to our behavior in order to get and receive monies from the federal government. We don't know yet what this is, where this is at. We stated back at the beginning of the second semester in January, we want to stay consistent through the whole second semester. I mean, if we change it now, we're not doing that. We've all been parents. When a parent puts down a rule, here's what it is. No, you cannot have candy. Candy is only at this time or at this special occasion. What happens when you break that rule? When you're inconsistent, then you get more attack from the child. I want candy, I want candy, I want candy. We're setting up all of our staff to hearing more of this problem if we break it now. Consistency is something we train and teach our students. What is it that we are doing? We are trying to produce children who will be happy, well-adjusted, successful in their own minds as adults. Inherent is that is safety. Safety that belongs to everybody that's a part of this. Not just who are employed or served. The families of those students, we have an inherent responsibility to. That's the way I look at my position as a board member.
Mr. President.
We're put in the position of acting like parents. That's a big one. But here's another question that I have. If we go optional, are we going to allow teachers then? Okay, so Ducey did it to us. Ducey said, okay, it's now the board's decision. Go yell at them. Well, what are we going to do? Are we going to allow teachers to say, it's my classroom, these are my classroom rules, and masks are mandated? Are we going to allow them to do that? That's another big can of worms if we go optional. And I think in all fairness, there are teachers that we need to allow them to do that. It's their classroom. This is a pandemic. And some of them might not even be able to get the vaccine. Those are my statements. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Weiser. Mr. Jacks.
My thoughts are, throughout this whole pandemic, KUSD staff, KUSD schools have really done an outstanding job throughout the whole process of it. And I think we all agree to that. And I'd look at when January came around and the staff and the schools said, you know, we really ought to go back to virtual learning for a couple of weeks and kind of see where we are since we came out of the holidays. And they were right. And that's what we ended up doing. But my point is once again, we followed the advice that we got from the district and the schools. I think it's hard as board members. We're not in the schools. We're not in there day to day seeing what they're seeing. So where I'm coming from is if our schools, if our principals say we can do this, and 70% of the staff says we can do this, and the district staff says we can do this, then I think it's worth giving it a try. And if we do run into problems, then we'd have to go back to masks. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Mr. Jacks. Jen, did you want to add anything, or Miss Young?
Yeah, I can
Oh.
actually piggyback off of the.
Okay, Miss Young or Jen's going to speak, and then you'll have the floor. Thanks.
So I hear what you say, Roger. The problem is, if things go wrong, that's lives that we're talking about. When things go wrong, those are people's lives and future health complications because of it. So I absolutely respect our teachers, but not to override CDC scientist guidance. So to help me, I also typed something up because my handwriting is horrible. So, and I'll just piggyback off of what Beth said. When Ducey announced his rescinding the mask requirement in schools, he cited the change of CDC guidelines. However, still on the CDC website, it says under key points, to sum up, school guidance number 4, all schools should implement and layer prevention strategies and should prioritize universal and correct use of masks and physical distancing. So my point 1, Ducey lied to further his own agenda. ASBA, Arizona School Board Association, who we use to help guide our policies, put out a statement saying, quote unquote, they fear this will add to the concerns of some parents already have regarding in-person learning. So point 2, while some parents might have reservations about sending their children to in-person school, it was our commitment to our return to learn guide and mitigation strategies that have given them peace of mind this entire time. Vaccines have not been approved for people under 16 years of age. Yet the new COVID variants, South African in particular, they've found can break through the Pfizer vaccine, has been found to be more contagious and harmful to young people. On our website and our mission statement, number 1 strategic goal says that we will ensure student safety and remains KUSD number 1 priority, and resources are allocated to meet changing strategies and needs. That is what we said, that we put students' safety first. Kathy Hoffman, Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction, put out a statement condemning Ducey's move and said, quote unquote, universal masking has allowed schools to operate safely during the pandemic. Point 4, the community spread data within the schools has been significantly less than the community spread taking place in Kingman proper. This can be attributed to the adherence to the Return to Learn guide and the staff, students, and teachers doing their part to follow the guide and keep each other safe. Even Lucero and Young, at various times in the last meetings, attributed their willingness to go to in-person learning because of the well-designed Return to Learn guide and the safety it provided our students and employees. And Roger, when he was at campaigning on his Facebook page, Roger Jacks for School Board, he actually was supporting masks before it was taken down. Sad face. In conclusion, there is enough research and data to support using masks, and doing so has kept the children in our community learning and safe. This is why I'm here, and the other board members here want that too. And if they want to continue keeping our staff, our students, our community safe, they will vote to keep the mask requirements in our schools and in our Return to Learn guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shumway. Mrs. Young, you had the floor next.
I have 2 questions. Since the governor did away with the mandate of the masks, what's our liability with enforcing it? Number 2, what is Kingman Academy doing?
Are those for me?
Yes.
The liability in enforcing it is an excellent question, and that's something we've talked about, and that's something that we have had many phone calls and passionate conversations with parents about. If we decide to move forward with the mask mandate and continue it through the end of the year, and people show up and say, make me, which has happened, what's our responsibility, and what's the expectation? Principals would like to know then of how to deal with that. Is that what you're talking about, Ms. Young?
Carol, can you hear Ms. Dorner?
No, I didn't hear her.
You did or didn't?
No, I did not.
Oh,
I'm asking her to be more specific about her liability question. How are we going to manage it? How do we manage non-compliance? Or are we liable for managing it? I'm not sure what she's asking.
Right. If our mandate is for masks, and students come to school without masks because the governor said release that mandate, how do we enforce it?
Well, I imagine it's like any uniform policy. The governor didn't mandate that we use uniforms in our school, and yet we require it. If we require masks, that's what it is. We send students home if they're not wearing a KUSD shirt.
Well, no, we give them a loaner.
Or we give them a shirt.
and
As we would give them a
try to
mask,
keep
right?
them-
Which
well,
we have been doing.
Or we put them in a different area in the ISS room to continue their work. We try really, really hard not to have kids leave school, but
Mhm.
yes. we have people ask us about, civil liberties. There's no precedence for this. And
Right.
we've made it through the year. And I think I really am proud of our community for wearing the masks when they didn't want to, because many, many, many of them haven't wanted to. And they have, for the sake of keeping schools open, kept their masks on. I am nervous about the next step. KAOL has made it optional. I think Emmanuel Christian had it optional most of the time. There are, one of the board members shared a list, Phoenix Union, Mesa, some of the larger districts in Phoenix are keeping the mask mandate going. So now you've got different schools doing different things. And now we're going to add into this chaotic year, are kids going to withdraw? Are they going to refuse? Are they going to show up and say, my civil liberties are being denied? I have no idea, Board Member Young, what tomorrow will bring. I wish I knew. And I
Okay.
don't know what our
That was my
liability is.
concern about the civil liberties of our students, our parents.
But we do have a right to have a board policy and to enforce it.
So Kingman Academy has made it optional?
Yes,
Okay,
Except
all
for
right.
buses,
except
right?
for bus riding.
I'm for the optional. I'm kind of confused because I've been watching the hearings on COVID on C-SPAN, and I've listened to Dr. Fauci and I've listened to CDC, and there's been a lot of contradictions. I'm for the optional, but what about buses? They're closer together on buses.
That was all the
Hello?
options.
That,
I think we're
We're
all
thinking.
thinking.
Okay.
I've been thinking this afternoon, and I did propose this to the principals, and I'll share my mindset because I wasn't exactly sure where this conversation would go. I like the idea of coming to a mutual collaborative decision. If the board has, two different sets of ideas, which I can hear, we really need to keep the mandate going, and I can hear, let's make it optional. Is there any way, and I know principal said, how would we manage it, but I'm going to say this anyway. Is there any way to tier it a little bit? Because the CDC has reduced to 6 feet down, right? We can agree on that. The social distancing has been kind of brought a little closer. We can fit more kids within those parameters in the classrooms. If kids are at their desks, or if they're in a room like we're in and the teacher's at the front, can they have a break from masks under those circumstances where they're stationary, there's not movement, and they have spacing? Like, does it have to be all or nothing, I guess is the question. Is there
and I
any?
think that's a broader question, and it requires some really
Mhm.
well thought out strategy. Because what you're saying, we can't just put out a blanket statement with those ideas going through our heads, right?
Right.
And that was what the Return to Learn guide did.
Right.
It took our thoughts that were swirling around with all of the data that was coming in, and we clearly put out, in this scenario, this is what's required. In this scenario,
It still says that too.
that it does.
Mhm.
So to rethink that and provide these options requires us to dig into that Return to Learn guide and really put that plan in place.
Well, they're the original options, Board Member Shumway. We had talked about if there's less than 10 people in a room and there's space, if we had several scenarios, and I'm not making this recommendation or asking you to go this direction, but I am sharing the idea that we are hearing, and I'm with you. We heard one thing about the CDC. We saw in the document that you shared, it didn't even have masks in the initial piece of it. It had sanitizing, distancing.
Are you talking about the paper?
Yeah, with the list of the schools, I think in the,
in the website
yeah, the one you sent to us earlier today.
with the list of schools?
Yeah, on the first page or the second page, on the second page, it talked about, while masks are not required in Arizona schools, ADHS is still encouraging schools to wash hands, utilize sanitizer, clean and maintain health facilities, and stay home when sick. So I wondered, why are masks not on the list from the ADHS? They're still on the CDC. There is a lot of confusion surrounding this.
Not confusion, omission.
Omission, or which causes confusion,
Right.
right? Omissions or misrepresentations or when you imply something, it causes confusion. So it's just another approach to look at if the world is changing and we're evolving, does it have to be masks on or masks off? Can it be just like we had in the Return to Learn guide originally? They're not at lunch, they're not at recess, they're not in smaller groups or with the space, but if you're moving in the hallway or you're in a collaborative setting, they need to go on. In other words, nobody should be showing up without one.
And now the Return to Learn guide says mask always, no
Well,
exception.
No, the Governor Ducey's mandate trumped the Return to Learn guide last fall. And we did not update it to include, we just said it oversees or it supersedes what was in the guide. But we still have the original wording. It's just an idea because I feel
And
like
how many students do we have in a classroom? Our biggest classroom versus our smallest classroom.
the range is in the mid to high teens to the mid to high 20s.
Even in our high schools?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And they have that definite 3 feet between them at all times?
In many or most cases, and then if they don't, then that would be, each principal could tell you every classroom in their building. I mean, we have a Manzanita representative, I guess your music, so it's a little different, but what the space is.
So it's different because you only have one class at a time, correct?
Right, but I have 7 classes a day,
Mhm.
8 on another day.
Yeah.
So I average 200 students a day. for
Right.
my
Through the
class.
room.
Right.
But only adult.
And there is a lot of data out there. The music community came together and did concrete data on aerosol transmission through singing, through all different types of instrument playing, and I can send that to you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I've read
then
some of that.
The guideline for singing without masks on is 12 feet.
Right.
And I can tell you in an elementary classroom, we are singing every day. We are, even in a 5th grade class, we use singing and body mapping all day long. So, doesn't have to be a music class to be singing when you're an effective teacher. So I think when you start to say, but in this case, but in this case, but in this case.
Right. And that's what the principal said. It gets very tricky.
Mhm. And we only have 5 weeks left of school.
21 days.
And if we could just be consistent for one frickin' thing this.
Well, I think we've been consistent. I think for me, when we're talking consistency, we're talking about leaving kids in school full time versus going back to hybrid, going back to virtual. I think that's the
Which we've
consistency
done.
in the model.
Multiple times this year.
Yeah, it's, I'm concerned with hallways. If we allow it to be optional, then, or with the specific, okay, so there's enough room, your class size is small enough, you've got enough room in your classroom, you can go without masks because there's enough distancing. But then you have to make sure that they're getting their masks on before they go out of the classroom and in the hallway. And that becomes a nightmare for every teacher. And who's being able to watch the hallways to get, just being able to say, hey, where's your school shirt? Or, and they take off. It's.
Yeah.
It's,
You've got actual teachers on this board who have had to manage going to uniforms from not requiring uniforms. It was difficult.
Still is.
yeah.
It still is difficult. So in a year where we are rounding it out, we're about to finish, students are just getting into a groove. And then we're going to be like, but wait, but maybe this, but perhaps here, but you have to here, maybe not here. You're going to create a mud pit.
Then you can make an
classroom-
all or nothing decision. That's just an idea.
So
Yeah.
Ms. Weiser, let me ask you what's going to change now versus in July? Like, are you considering, are you thinking that it's a possibility that we could be wearing masks, or we could be having a mask mandate in our schools in July when we start the next school year?
No, I'm actually very hopeful that beginning next school year, we won't have to have masks.
But you think there's a possibility we still could? I mean, what?
Well, because of the UK variant, the South African variant, I mean, the fact that they're hitting the kids, it's all dependent on how much vaccination we get done, how much herd immunity we get done. But I think we're really close that we could make it to not need masks at the beginning of the school year again.
And if nothing else, that gives us time to lay those options out into a return to learn guide for the 21-22 school year that provides those options to start fresh and give the teachers that do need that option the option, but we clearly write it out because we've taken the time to do it right versus an on-the-fly special meeting.
Another thing that I skipped over in my list of things was bullying.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about bullying if we make it optional, because all of a sudden you've got kids that are going to be saying, you're not wearing a mask, you need your mask. And other kids going, you're silly, haha, you have to wear a mask. You know, I mean, it's going to be rampant all through the classrooms.
But Board Member Weiser, do you think that will be a problem also in July? Because I've been thinking about that comment. And when July comes, July of 21, July of 22, I still feel there will be families and adults who will continue to wear masks beyond the borders of this school year. So I think respectfully, that conversation is going to have to be dealt with regardless.
Yes, but I think that we would have a better opportunity because at the beginning of the next school year, we will have a better idea of knowing where we're at, for one thing,
Sure.
at that point. And people will choose if they're going to go virtual or not because they've gone through this already.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at, it's the end of the year. We're almost done. I mean, in all honesty, I can understand, I totally can understand where people don't want to have to wear the masks anymore or didn't want to at all, ever. But, and I do understand too that we're looking at graduation and people want to be able to not only have graduation, but they want to be able to have their pictures. And they want to be able to enjoy their graduation and get on school grounds without having to wear a mask. We're going to be outside. I don't see why we would have to have a mask mandate at graduation this year.
That's a different conversation.
But given where we're at. But if this is all so that we can have the last week of school or the graduation without masks, we can just separate that out. The last week of school, you know, when a student they've already completed all their work and they don't have to be there, you know, then being optional, it won't matter to the kids anymore about, you know, the bullying won't be such a big deal. It's right now through the last of getting their grades done, getting their homework turned in, being able to concentrate on their work, teachers being able to concentrate on the students instead of, oh, that's right, you know, it's okay that they're wearing a mask. No, don't worry. It's okay that they're not wearing a mask. It's all of that classroom management is just going to be nuts. Changing it right now, Governor Ducey just makes me so mad that he did this.
I think we can all agree on that.
Affecting everybody,
Agree on that one.
you know?
We're going to have challenges regardless, whether you vote this evening to continue or you vote this evening to modify, we're going to have challenges. So we just have to decide which set of challenges
Question,
meet our needs.
what would you foresee as far as a phase-in if we went to an optional plan? Would there be some time that would be needed to work with the schools to brainstorm this pretty much as we are tonight? Could this happen? Could that happen?
Do you mean
I think
like
it's
continue
starting off.
masks until the May board meeting and we would have opportunity to have more information? Is that what you mean?
Well, I just thrown that
Or as an idea?
as an idea.
I think we're just looking for something to grab a hold of. I mean, this entire year feels like we're all treading water, and the minute we get a log to grab, we do. And masks were that on both sides. One side recognized that this might just be one of those evils that we have to accept so that we can get our kids in school, that we can have our schedule back so we can get back to work. The other side was like, I don't really want to be in school, but at least there's masks, right? We all kind of grabbed a hold of this log, and all we're just asking is let us hold on for a couple more weeks.
Keep the consistency. And I'm referring to, it's a mandate that this has been a school policy. Everybody's used to it. And that's consistency and not requiring more of the teachers right now at the end of the year.
I have another question.
Yes, Ms. Young.
Does the city still have a mandate for masks?
Are
Oh.
you not here in Kingman?
What?
Does anyone know I mean,
No.
she's asking a question. She's not.
No, they don't.
No,
That
there's
went
no-
away in like October of last year.
The state and the city mandate were gone. The school was left
Okay.
intact.
So these kids are still out in the community where they aren't wearing masks.
Well, it's optional, right?
And
So
when
they
they-
might be.
It might be optional. So if it's optional in the city, I don't see why we can't go optional in the school.
I wanted to, if I
Do you have
could
a comment?
follow, isn't it required in the city buildings and in
Yeah, I
the
think so.
county buildings?
Mhm.
Masks are still required in the city buildings and in the county buildings.
I don't know about the county, but in the city, yes.
Yeah, the last time I was in the county, I think it was still, they
That
required.
could be
masks.
changing though now. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't catch
Yeah,
the
they-
meeting this morning.
The difference is this kids have to be there. The teachers have to be there. They have to be in this room specifically for this amount of time. They can't recognize that a room is full and they step out. They don't have that option to escape when they feel uncomfortable. So that's
think,
how
did
schools
you-
are different than Walmart.
You referred to you said something about a babysitter or a board member. You kind of look at it like your role as a babysitter or something.
A parent, she
A
said.
parent. Oh, parent. Okay. So as a board member, I look at my role as representing our community and trying to make the best decision. So in our community, so the information we have is that all the principals except for one thought that making masks optional can work in the schools. We represent the principals. We have 70% of the survey that was sent out, although it's a one-day survey, saying that yes, we would like to see an optional mask policy in the schools. So I'm a little bit looking at it that way, that that's what our constituents are asking for.
And I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to. I had 4 families in particular message me today, said if the mask mandate goes away and it's optional, they will be unenrolling their children tomorrow.
And I had families saying, if it doesn't go away, we're unenrolling. So I think you said it perfectly, Board Member Shumway, a minute ago, that log analogy that you said.
You're going to have that on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have that on both sides.
The
So-
difference is the one side is mad, the other side is scared. And I can feel more toward the family that is afraid for their health versus being mad or throwing a tantrum.
What do you mean by they're mad? What
They're
does that mean?
upset because they still have to wear masks versus the people that that want people to wear masks for their own safety. They're afraid.
But I
And
don't, yeah.
I can feel for the people that are afraid versus the people that are just mad that they have to wear them.
I don't feel like we should minimize anyone's perspective, though.
I'm not minimizing their opinion. I'm telling you that I can feel for them, the people that are afraid for their family's health or their children's health.
Well, and for me, it comes down to the consistency, and I'm afraid of the bullying and the additional classroom management that we're at the end of the year. The requirements on a teacher at the end of the year just goes sky high. And
Yep.
to add all of this dilemma, it's just, we're gonna lose teachers. I mean, I would be surprised if we didn't over this, the stress load.
But most of the teachers are asking, or the staff is asking to have an optional policy.
That's what I heard too.
That is the statistics of the answers you received, correct?
Yes,
And you got
30%.
what, about 55% answered the question?
correct. And as I said earlier, and she's pointing out 30% are very nervous and concerned about it and
Yeah.
make good points also. But it definitely, based on the principal's commentary and the survey, we do sway on the side of optional if it were a voting situation, but
Right.
the weight has to be given on both sides.
I don't know how to find a compromise. I mean, because of all the things we've talked about, I don't know how we find a policy that's a compromise.
We will march forward and do an excellent job, whichever direction we're given.
I think the compromise is going to happen this summer when we rebuild that return to learn guide with those options and we really sit down and think about that. I think that's where the compromise is going to be useful, because that's where we'll be able to come out of a school year. We will have learned what we learned and learned what we don't know, right? And be able to really put pen to paper about these options that we're speaking about. That's where the compromise, to me, will be the best used and most logical.
Well, if we go optional, I won't be voting for optional, but if the vote goes that way, then we're going to be dealing with close proximity in hallways. And at the high school level, they're old enough to carry and transmit. That's scary. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else have anything else to say or a motion?
I make the motion that we leave the mask policy in place as it has been and continue forward until our June or July meeting to revisit the return to learn guide.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? So we'll do a recall or a roll call vote. We'll just start on this end. Ms. Young, do you, yes, nay? Ms.
Aye.
Weiser, aye. I would vote no on that motion. Mr. Jackson, vote no. Ms. Shumway, yes. So the motion fails 2-3. Do we have another motion or more discussion?
I'll make the motion that we go with the optional mask requirement in KUSD, except on the buses, and the buses we have a mandatory mask wearing.
Okay. Star, did you get that motion? Did you? Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion, so we will do a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Young.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Nay.
I vote yes. Mr. Japs.
Yes.
Ms. Shumway.
No.
No. Motion passes 3-2. Any other discussion? So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So we are adjourned. Thank you.